Oh my god. Okay. What's up, it's Jan back at it again with another nerdy bookish video. This is gonna be my massive July wrap up. As some of y'all may know, I did the 10,000 pages in 10 days challenge. Spoiler, I failed, but the vlog will be down below for you to see just how close to 10,000 I got, because I did try my darndest. I had my birthday that week, so a bunch of shenanigans went on, some mental health stuff and like other stuff. So there was a lot that could have been used as excuses. I didn't get up early enough, but I also learned a lot. I read a shit ton in that video. 26 books in 10 days. Needless to say, this wrap up is gonna be long, but I'm not gonna do it in the usual reread, rewrite, burn tag style, as I mentioned in my June wrap up. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link my June wrap up down below so you can see what I usually do, but we're gonna take a break from that for the first time in like 3 years and do it in more of a rapid fire style, because I did read 43 books in July. I did read audiobooks, manga, graphic novels, but also lots of eyeball reading, physical books. It was a good mix. I'll still do my recap in the beginning. This is the most I've ever read in a month because of that crazy challenge that I attempted, along with a bunch of my patrons as well attempted the challenge, and a couple of them actually hit 10,000 and another couple of them got really close, like in the 9,000s. So very proud of them. I'm not gonna spoil how many pages I got to, but just letting you know I did not hit the 10,000. I did hit over 10,000 for the month, 11,599 pages. I've decided I'm gonna start doing the calculations for the audiobook pages as well. I was just too lazy for the past like 3 years or whatever to calculate the percentages every day, because I do keep track of my pages read every single day because I try to hit 100 pages every day. So I figured I'd take the time to do that now after the 10K challenge, because that was pretty fun to see a more accurate page count by the end of the month. I couldn't read one more to hit 11,600, but it's fine. Out of those 43 books, I read 21 BIPOC authors. Best book was the very last book I read in July. Women Don't Owe You Pretty. I don't even, oh, Florence Gavin is the, Gavin? Gavin is just always on my mind. Florence Given was the author of that book. That was my non-fiction book for the month. The other non-fiction book I read was poetry, and I know some people are weird about that, so I just made sure to read another non-poetry non-fiction. This one was one of the best non-fiction books I've ever read. It was exactly what I needed to read. You know when you pick up a random book, it just happened to call to you at the exact moment that you needed all that information, that writing in your life? That happened with this book for me. It talked a lot about boundaries, boundaries on the internet, boundaries in real life. It talked about toxic relationships, romantic or friendships or anything, social media. It talked about misogyny and racism, and also like falling in love with yourself, making yourself the love of your own life. It was definitely a self-help book, and it sure as fuck helped me. There were so many validating quotes. There were so many things that like I needed to hear at that moment, because y'all know I've been working on my internet boundaries this year especially, and I've been learning a lot about that and myself in general this year. So it was perfect. Okay, I promise I'm not going to talk this long about every single book. That book is in my cramming vlog, which I'm editing as we speak. So more of my in-depth as I read thoughts will be in that video, which I'll link down below because it's hopefully going to be up before this wrap up. The worst book of the month is something I actually own. I also bought a physical copy of Women Don't Owe You Pretty off of Pango, because of course I did. My worst book, however, I just don't get it. I don't get this series. I don't understand. I'm gonna keep the third book in the series. I haven't read it yet, but it's from one of my patrons, Amanda, so thank you. But I'm gonna get rid of the first 2 books. They're gonna be on my Pango. They are annotated, but yeah, I listened to the audiobook and followed along. I thought I'd like it more than the first because it was heavier on vampires, but it just did not do anything for me. I don't understand everyone's obsession with Jax. It's not my series. I'm still gonna try Caraval, and like I said, I'm gonna finish off this trilogy, and I'm gonna keep giving Stephanie Garber more chances, but this is overhyped in my opinion, and I gave this one 2 stars. I actually didn't give any 1 stars this month, so that's pretty wild. My nonfiction books were Women Don't Owe You Pretty, as well as I Am Not Your Final Girl, which I also read on Kindle, so that's gonna be on my Kindle books list as well. That one I gave 4 stars. I really enjoyed the messages that were portrayed all throughout the book. The writing was great. The horror movie references were great. Loved it. I read that on Kindle Unlimited. The arc that I read, I have this goal every month because I'm trying to up my NetGalley score as much as I can, so even if the book is out already, I still count it as an arc if I received a physical arc or a NetGalley arc, because I still give feedback and it does up my NetGalley score. If you don't know what that means, the recommended NetGalley score is 80% and I'm at like 28%. Obviously the higher your score, the more arcs you'll get approved for. The arc I read was Your Shadow Half Remains, which is also my buzzwordathon book for the month. The buzzword for this month was measurement words, and half is indeed a measurement word. This is a pandemic book that I actually enjoyed, and it's The Last of Us meets Bird Box is the pitch. I haven't read either of those, but I really enjoyed this. It was such a nice surprise. It's super short, love the writing, it's a debut, and I gave this one 4 stars. Love the progression of the story, love the short chapters, the characters' tension with each other. It's queer, it's creepy, there's this whole like desirability theme going on, and you can't look each other in the eye or else you start trying to kill people, I think. Something like that. And there's this whole like thing with crows as well, and crows are fascinating to me. So yes, love that one. The Kindle books I read were I Am Not Your Final Girl, A Crack in the Foundation. This was actually going to be Joey and I's Unmuted and Unhinged Sprints book, but since I'm not going live anymore after August 7th, at least I'm not hosting anymore, we canceled Unmuted and Unhinged Sprints, but we still buddy read this in my cramming vlog. So if you want our thoughts, those will be there. I gave this 4 stars. It was not what we expected because we thought this was snow. So we thought it was going to be like a wintry extreme horror. It was not. It took place in a basement. I'm not going to say too much else because it's a very short book, but it got wild. It got graphic. Wrong place, wrong time is all I'm going to say. The last Kindle book I read was this short story called Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix. It's part of the Creature Feature series that a bunch of horror authors have on Kindle Unlimited. Ankle Snatcher I gave 4 stars. It was basically your classic boogeyman story. It was super fun. I read it really quickly. It was like 60 something pages. It was a fun time. Love Grady Hendrix. I don't love all his books, but I want to. I'm still working on his backlist. That was one of them. Figured it was a quick way to get my pages in for that challenge. Buzzword already went through. Okay, so for Patreon, we have this monthly challenge that's kind of like Buzzwordathon, but instead of in the title, you look for things in the covers of books. This month, the thing to look for was desserts. So I read When in Rome by Sarah Adams, because there's pie on the cover, because our man owns a pie shop, even though he doesn't like pie, but it was like a family thing. This is like Hannah Montana movie vibes, because it's this singer who ends up in this small town because she's trying to have like an Audrey Hepburn moment, but instead of Rome, she went to Rome, Kentucky because it was closer. There was a little twist at the end. This was so freaking cute. I gave it 5 stars. I love this so much. It took me so long to read. I don't know why. I've talked about this in like 4 different vlogs, maybe more. I love Sarah Adams now, and I want to read everything she's written. I have the cheat sheet and practice makes perfect. I'm gonna make my way through her backlist as well, but I loved it. It's so cute. I love characters with depth in romances, you know. Both of them have their traumas, their triggers. He takes a while to open up because it's Grumpy Sunshine, small town, you get to know all these other side characters. Super freaking cute. And then the last category in this recap, we have Book of the Month / Aardvark books. If you didn't know, I am an Aardvark affiliate, so I do have a code to get your first Aardvark Book Club box for $4 plus free shipping, which saves you quite a bit of money. So my code is JAN, and if you forget, it'll be in the description down below. But yeah, I love Aardvark, but this particular month I read 2 Book of the Month books. So the first book I read for the 10K challenge. So the challenge went from July 1st to the 10th. So on July 1st, the first one I picked up was, God, take a shot every time I said first. First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. I've had this for a while since it was a Book of the Month pick. I was like, I need to see what the hype's about. I think this was a Reese's Book Club pick also at some point. I just don't get the hype. I'm gonna be selling this as well. I gave this one 3 stars. I had to look up spoilers for this one. I was quite disappointed. Very forgettable story. And then the other Book of the Month book I read was one of the most surprising books of this wrap up, The Devil Takes You Home by Gabino Iglesias. The reason it's surprising is because it involves a drug cartel, and I've read Velvet Was the Night, and that also was like the same vibes. Hated that. But this involved the devil somehow, so I was like, yeah, this is more up my alley. Book of the Month included a translation guide for this one as well, which helped me stay engaged because I listened to the audiobook, and as I was listening, I was translating the Spanish in this, so that was super fun. I tabbed the shit out of it. I really loved the writing in this. There are like a bunch of really good quotes. There's grief, there's slow descent into madness is the gist of this book. Really loved it. Gave it 4 stars, I believe. So now we're gonna go straight into the rapid fire type of wrap up where I'm just gonna say the rating and a sentence or 2 for each book. First book was First Lie Wins. I already told you about that. Next book I read was Little Scratch by Rebecca Watson. This I got as a recommendation from Lucy Love. It's like this type of format. It's in verse, but like kind of scattered, and it's literally my brain on a daily basis. It's following this woman and her every little thought of every single day. It was just so relatable in so many ways, and I gave it 5 stars. And it was a quick way to get pages for the challenge as well. The next 2 books I read were Happiness, volumes 9 and 10. This is a vampire manga, and it also involves something else that I can't spoil, but it's one of my favorite things in horror. So really love that series. I gave volume 9 4 stars and volume 10 3 stars. I read both of those on Libby thanks to Alexis from Alexis Fully Booked, who is one of my Vampy Vamps, one of my patrons. She let me use her Libby account because those were the only 2 volumes that weren't on Kindle Unlimited for some reason, so that was rude, but Alexis was a lifesaver. Next, I read When Oceans Rise by Robin something, a Filipino author. I borrowed this book from the library. I gave that one 4 stars. As I said in my vlog, it was like the best Filipino rep I've ever read in a book. I learned a lot about Filipino lore that I didn't know about. There were just so many relatable moments in that, and it was a Little Mermaid retelling where this girl was in a toxic relationship, and the deal with the sea witch was that the girl could forget about her past, like her past never happened with this gaslighty boy, but she had to give her voice to the sea witch, so it was that kind of moment. And then there was another guy involved and family stuff. It was really good. Give it 4 stars. Next, we have another library book, 7 Empty Houses by Samantha Schweblin, the author of Fever Dream. This is a translated work. Gave this one 3 stars. This was a story collection, and I really enjoyed the second story, I believe, in particular. The other ones were kind of really confusing or forgettable, but the second story kind of stuck with me. I had a fun time with that, and I am also working through that author's backlist. Something about her writing just gets me. It's weird horror, and I haven't given a 5 star yet, but it's kind of like addictive horror for some reason. Next was Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix. Gave it 4 stars. Already talked about that. Then we had Burned by Ellen Hopkins. I know, throwback, but it was Joey's idea for me to grab a bunch of Ellen Hopkins books from the library so I could get my pages in, because all of them are in verse. It was just hard. I didn't even finish the sequel yet. I'm still in the middle of Smoke. It was just hard because all her books are so fucking depressing, and this one was no exception. I gave this one 4 stars though, because the ending really shocked me, and it was 4 stars despite this one thing that I hate in books. Yeah, it happened, but I think it was well done. It was so heartbreaking at the end, so really enjoyed that. Not enjoyed. Enjoyed is not the word. That book shocked me. It was surprising how much I was captivated throughout the whole book. Next is another manga. I read Chainsaw Man Volume 1. This was a recommendation by Brienne, another one of my vamps. She said I'd like how unhinged it is, and she wasn't wrong. I still have to continue the series, and I definitely will, but yeah, Volume 1 I gave 4 stars. Next was The Ballad of Never After. Already said gave it 2 stars. Worst book of the month. Open Throat by Henry Hoke is the next book. Also got it from the library. Super short book. I saw it on short books table at Barnes & Noble, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this from the library. I gave this one 5 stars, and it might actually be a contender for my top 10 of the year. It's from the perspective of this queer mountain lion who lives under the Hollywood sign, and they just sit there and observe humans taking hikes. It was pretty cool because I have hiked to the Hollywood sign before, so like I kind of had a visual of where this was and what it looked like up there. It was so entertaining to read from an animal's perspective, let alone like a wild mountain lion. This mountain lion would watch people fuck on their hikes, and that was just like the most memorable part, but the writing was so good as well. There's a little bit of gore in there, so yeah, really enjoyed that one. Next we have Pure Color by Sheila Hetty. I don't know, I randomly picked this up at Barnes & Noble when I did a little mini Patreon meetup. It's really fast. It's one of those vignette type of books. I gave this one 4 stars. I just remember there's a sapphic relationship in this. Oh, I said this was the epitome of like existential crisis. It talked a lot about what is life, how you approach things in life. There's some religion talk in here, but it was mostly just existentialist type of crap. Not crap. It was good writing. I appreciated what I read. I kind of forgot a lot, but I know there were some really good quotes all throughout. It was a little bit unhinged, but in like a sophisticated manner. Next book is another manga, one of my new favorite manga I've ever read. Definitely going to continue this series, but it's #DRCL Midnight Children Volume 1. Gave that one 5 stars. The art is just chef's kiss, everything. I don't think the whole series is translated yet, but bet your bottom dollar I'm gonna buy them all. I don't own any manga besides Junji Ito, but this is gonna be another exception. Next we have another manga that I gave 2 stars, which was Flying Witch Volume 1. I just needed more witchiness. It was very like mundane, regular, earthly life, and I wanted flying witches, as the title suggests. Next we have Whalefall by Daniel Kraus. This was gifted to me by one of my vamps, Tiffany. This was one of her favorite books. I actually just got it signed by Daniel Kraus today. We went to a horror author event and he drew me a little whale, so that's cute. Short chapters, fun facts about sea life. This guy gets swallowed by a whale. He has a toxic relationship with his dad, so if you have daddy issues, trigger warning. And it was really fun, fast. I read it in a day. Joey read it in a day. Highly recommend that one. Gave this one 4 stars. Next we have another manga, because again, 10K and 10 pages, had to do what I had to do. My Summer Review Volume 1. Gave that one 3 stars. It was very just like messy high school romance, but it was male, so had a fun time. Next we have Small Horrors by Darcy Coates. This is 50 3 short horror stories, and it was so much fun. A lot of them ended the same way as I said in my vlog, but a lot of them were super fun. Some of them were 5-star stories. I flew through this book, and by the same ending, I mean like it was abrupt and there was like a limb reaching for someone's neck or someone's body part. And there was also one story that was pretty much exactly like a classic horror movie that I just watched. There were some misses, but I still gave this 4 stars overall. Next, I have a book that is published by St. Martin's Press, so I will be withholding my review until they speak up, as I am standing in solidarity with the marketing boycott. It's a marketing boycott, so it's just like you can't promote it, but you could still read, you could still buy. You know, it's not a consumer boycott, but I've been just avoiding reading them altogether so I don't accidentally talk about them. So I won't be talking about that, but just know it's there. It was a cozy mystery by an Asian author. That's all I'm gonna say. Speaking of Asian authors, Junji Ito. I reread Tomie again to get my pages and also as my reread for the month of July because it is one of my favorites, so it was a little birthday treat, you know? Obviously 5 stars. It's about this succubus who like seduces men, and this is a short story collection, but it's huge. This is the deluxe edition, and this was gifted to me by one of my patrons, another Amanda, I believe. Next we have Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. I gave this 4 stars. Surprisingly, I honestly thought I would hate the first couple books of this series, but I did buy the entire series off of Pango because it's the indie edition, so I was like, okay, at least they'll sell if I don't like them, you know? But I really enjoyed this one. It's a mafia romance. I really liked the romance in this one. I liked the banter. There are illustrations in this edition as well. I don't know, man. Sophie Lark can get me in a chokehold sometimes. I really like Sinner's Duet, so I don't know. I'm gonna read more of her books. Next is I Am Not Your Final Girl, which we talked about, and then another manga that was recommended by Gabby, The Summer Hikaru Died. I gave that one 3 stars. It felt like a Black Mirror episode, so I enjoyed it. It just wasn't my favorite. Next we have a book that I forgot everything about. Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This is actually Joey's book. I just borrowed his copy. I listened to it on audio. Don't remember a damn thing. Don't remember the twist. Everything was just forgettable. I think this is such an overhyped thriller. I wanted to know what the hype was about, but alas. Hopefully Joey likes it though, because he's the one who bought it. Did I say I gave that one 3 stars? I gave that one 3 stars. Next we have The Devil Takes You Home, which I already talked about, 4 stars. And then another manga, Number Call, which I also gave 3 stars. This is another male-male romance. These 2 boys in high school basically bond over the fact that both their names mean the number 8. And so it's like this whole bit throughout the whole book about the number 8 and their names. I don't know. It was just like excessive with the name thing. But there were like bonus stories at the end, which were super cute. Next was also a gift from another patron named Amanda. She got me Home Is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. Joey read this book, liked it, so I read it. I gave it a shot. I didn't think I would like it as much as I did. Pleasant surprise. Gave it 4 stars. I DNF'd one of Geneva Rose's books, and then I gave 2 stars to You Shouldn't Have Come Here. But really enjoyed this one. It was like your classic thriller plot. I did guess part of the twist, but I could tell that, oh my god, why is this always so hard to put back? I could definitely tell that Geneva Rose's writing has improved. I appreciated that. And this is definitely one that I want to try to reread one day because I didn't have time to annotate, and there were some quotes that resonated with me. Next we have another Junji Ito that was gifted to me by another patron, Destiny, so thank you so much for this birthday present. This is Junji Ito's newest story collection, Alley. I gave this one 4 stars. I had a really good time with this. There were a lot of creepy moments. I'm glad I enjoyed it overall. There were of course a couple stories that didn't hit as hard as most of them did, but again, overall 4 stars. Your Shadow Half Remains, already talked about her. This next book I read for Jordaline's Patreon book club because I was her guest, and we read Maggie's Grave by David Sodergren. This is my first book by David Sodergren, and yep, the hype is real with this horror author, and I'm on it. I'm gonna be reading like everything he writes. I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. This is Fear Street meets Barbarian, so if you like any of those things, I think you'd really like this. It's witchy, it's dark, it's gory, it gets wild. Loved it. Next we have another manga, a fantasy manga that Cass recommended to me called Frieren. I read 4 volumes this month. I gave the first one 3 stars, the second one 4 stars, the third one 2 stars, and the fourth one 4 stars. Again, if you want more thoughts on any of these books, I pretty much vlogged everything. Some of them were Patreon vlogs, but I'll link all my July vlogs down below. I mean, most of them are in that one video from the 10K challenge, but yeah, I'll have most books in vlogs otherwise. The next book I read was Children of Anguish and Anarchy by Tomi Adeyemi. This is the final installment in the Legacy of Orisha series. This was the fantasy series that got me into fantasies. I've read the first book twice via audio, which is so weird for me. Like, it's a almost 600-page book, I think. I really love this series, and I gave this one 5 stars as well. And I might be a little bit biased because a lot of people hate this book who love the first 2 books, but there was this one shocking moment towards the end end. And then my heart was put back together and it ended in a nice little bow, but it did take a little bit to get to where it needed to go. There was a lot of like just dicking around. There were a lot of action scenes that were kind of unnecessary, but I still gave it 5 stars because, again, a little bit of a bias because I love the series so much. It has a special place in my heart. Also, this is so freaking pretty, and it really did make a difference that these borders were here because I'm staring at something pretty on every page. My full moon book club pick for last month was The Haunting of Velkwood by Gwendolyn Kist, and this was the last live show that I'm ever pretty much gonna have for full moon book club. And if you missed my post, starting in August, I'm gonna have spoiler-filled vlogs publicly, so on YouTube, not Patreon, up on the full moon of every month, so we still keep the full moon schedule going. It'll just be spoiler-filled vlogs, no live show whatsoever. We can just chat in the comments. Maybe I'll come up with some discussion questions throughout the spoiler-filled video. I don't know. I've just been really enjoying filming spoiler-filled vlogs lately, like dedicated spoiler-filled vlogs, because I do it for my Lair Bloody Read over on Patreon. Patreon link is always down below, by the way. So I figured, why not be more productive, do it for full moon book club as well, because I just feel so dumb during live shows. So I was like, no one is benefiting from this. So I'd rather just have a video up for y'all and then we can chat about each book that way. But The Haunting of Velkwood, I gave 3 stars. It was just very cyclic, like I said in my vlog, and I was lost a little bit, but at the same time, I just wasn't really into it. I feel like there were a little bit of plot holes every now and then. I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I liked the atmosphere for sure. There was a sapphic romance in here and there were ghosts. I describe this as Black Mirror, but make it paranormal. So if you're into that, it's a good short fun time. It does have longer chapters than I would like, but it went pretty fast for what it was. Next, I read Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. Joey and I actually buddy read this. We both have copies because we went to a Riley Sager event when this came out and got it signed. We did a buddy read spoiler-filled vlog for my top tier on Patreon. I ended up giving it 3 stars. For those of you who aren't on that tier of Patreon and haven't seen any of my thoughts, I was very disappointed in this. So sad about it. The vibes were definitely there. Like the nostalgia, the Midwestern suburbs, except it's not in the Midwest, but it felt like the Midwest. But yeah, the nostalgia was definitely there. It's just the plot. It went a certain direction that I was loving and I wish it just like rolled with that. But the twist, the ending, the reveal, the whole reason why things were happening, not for me, dude. Not for me. And I'm really sad about it. This is probably gonna be like low middle on my ranking for Riley Sager books. So hopefully his next one is good because I loved The Only One Left. So maybe it's like an every other book type of thing for me. Next I read a library book, again by Samantha Schweblin, because I've been trying to read her backlist. Mouthful of Birds, which is a story collection. I ended up giving that one 2 stars. There was a whole dog abuse story that I wasn't into, and I didn't even care enough to look at the analysis to see like if there was a reason, what the reason was, whatever. It was too much for me. That's like my line, you know? Don't even remember. Oh, I remember this one butterfly story. But other than that, it was a pretty forgettable story collection. That was a bummer. Next, I read my Lair Bloody Read for last month, which was Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. So I do have, again, a spoiler-filled vlog for all tiers on Patreon. I actually went live with Katie for this because it was also her Patreon buddy read. I ended up giving this 4 stars. This was another pleasant surprise. I think at one point somewhere I said that I'd never read Paul Tremblay before. I've definitely read The Cabin at the End of the World. So this was my second Tremblay book. It was really good. The ending, I loved it. There were some parts that were definitely confusing, but the ending really gave it that extra star. I don't even know how to explain it, but we jump timelines. It's about obsession. It's a love letter to film. That's all I got for now. And then I read one of my top 10 books of the year, most likely. An Excellent Host by Chelsea G. Summers, again from Destiny. She also kindly went to her local bookstore, bought the last copy. I paid her back, but she sent it to me. She took the time to send it to me. Thank you so much. Chelsea G. Summers is one of my favorite authors. Loved A Certain Hunger. It was one of my top 10 whenever it came out. And it's basically the same vibes as A Certain Hunger. I don't want to say too much, but that's pretty much the gist. Except it's more like digestible language than A Certain Hunger, which was very like sophisticated vocabulary. This has some. There's also Greek myth references in this, so do keep that in mind, but it's basically in modern day New York. And there's this arrogant ass cocky guy and female revenge occurs. 5 stars. Then A Crack in the Foundation, For You're in Volume 3, When in Rome. Oh, look at that. Luster by Raven Leilani. I ended up giving this 3 stars, but that is totally my fault. I feel like this deserves a higher rating. I just was too distracted. I tried following along for some pages, but I mostly read this via audio, and I wasn't too big of a fan of the narrator, so it was hard to focus the entire time, but I loved how reckless, impulsive this main character was, and I love the brutal honesty all throughout. I love the commentary all throughout. Despite it having a bunch of scenes talking about pregnancy, I still enjoyed my time reading this. It's not for everybody. It's definitely like sad girl lit fic, and there are a lot of like trigger warnings and stuff, but I would definitely reread this and see what I missed because of my lack of paying attention to the audiobook. For You're in Volume 4 I already talked about, and then Women Don't Owe You Pretty I already talked about. Wow, look at that. Whew, that is everything. Hope you enjoyed that way of wrapping up for a month. I'll go back to reread, rewrite, burn for August. I love that method still. I'm never changing that. I'm never fully going away from that. I just needed to for these 43 books, because then we'd be here for like 2 days straight. If you've read any of these books, let me know if you agree, disagree, talk in the comments. If you made it to the end of this video, first of all, thank you so much for watching. Put the birthday cake emoji in the comments down below, because it was my birthday month and my best reading month, although it was quantity over quality for sure in many ways. July felt so fucking long. I'm so glad it's over. I'm so glad I can start a fresh reading month with the full moon readathon. Hope y'all are having fun with the readathon if you're participating. Again, thank you so much for watching this wrap up. Don't forget to do some self-care. Hope you have a 5-star day, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.